Hey everyone, welcome back to the YouTube channel for OCD recovery. Today I'm going to talk all about why thoughts or thoughts isn't going to work when you're really stuck. Why you can use it a little bit more when you're recovered. It's not really a method that you use. That's the problem. When people talk about thoughts or thoughts, they're explaining it as if it's a mantra. It's not something that you just say thoughts or thoughts and never think about again. It's explained through this lens of, oh, a thought is a thought. That's a very big compulsion. We're going to talk all about it. But I want to talk about why this book, which is one of my favorite books that changed my life, Outlast the Life by Paul David, Anxiety and Panic Free. This book is the 5th book on the reading list. It's one of the most important books for anything with a sensation or urge, leaving it there. But it's not going to be enough for OCD and anxiety recovery. So if you just had this book right here, if you just had this book and Claire Weeks' book, Self-Help for Your Nerves, those two books, as good as they are, as good as the principles are for leaving physical symptoms there, would you be able to recover with just those books by themselves from chronic OCD? If you took 1,000 OCD sufferers at the level that we were, 999 with an absolute guarantee would not recover, and one maybe with shit luck. Now, I know what you're thinking, Nick, that sounds really cocky. You don't know that, but we do know that. We're experts at our craft. We work with OCD all day, every day, all around the world. We see these things through the lens of the recovered state and maintaining that recovered state. There's a lot of people who say they recover, but their habits are bad. They have, and again, that's part of the journey, the ups and downs, but they're not where they say they are. I mean, there's a lot of people who proclaim that they're recovered, talk about thoughts or thoughts, and then have a 2-month relapse when they're in their bed all day. I mean, that's not really someone that's very inspiring, in my opinion. Not to put that person down, like I've been that person, but that's not a maintenance of a long-term recovery. So again, we're going to talk about this book. Phil at OCDrecovery.com to learn more about our subscription services, what that entails, bi-weekly, every other week, once a month, whatever works for you for that consistency. More updates about the webinars and everything else Phil can update you on. Please thank Phil behind the scenes. He does not get enough praise. That man does so much behind the scenes that no one knows about. And without Phil, the company would not run the way it is. So this book, Outlast the Life by Paul David, is comical, witty, and comes from the perspective of the lived experience with panic disorder. This book is outstanding, if not one of the best books ever written on human history about not solving, leaving things there, and going about your day, which is a critical piece of OCD and anxiety recovery. But because OCD has an extreme realness component, fear of losing control, what if I'm a monster, what if there's no meaning to life, what if I'm stuck with my breathing sensations? Am I blinking for the rest of my life? Body dysmorphia, fears of rejection. Belief systems are not discussed in this book. So it's only a piece of the pizza pie. So imagine you have a pie, okay, with 8 slices. This accounts for, say, 3 slices. And that's a large amount. But what about the other 5 slices? Let's say, well, 1 slice or 2 slices is habits, etc. But then there's another 3 or 2 slices, really 3 if you want to use percentage-wise, and this is just a crude example, that are belief systems about your worst-case scenario. Which, if you have panic in GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, and you cut your compulsions, your avoidance, and live your life, you will naturally change your beliefs to a degree where you don't need to maybe work on your beliefs as much as we do. But we know this isn't going to be enough for chronic OCD because there are thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of OCD sufferers who have come in who have tried to use these incredible principles by Paul David, but they're still really stuck. Why? Because OCD is extremely nuanced. OCD, PTSD, GAD, panic disorder, body dysmorphia disorder, they're all difficult, but OCD is usually more nuanced than the rest. What can work for GAD and panic disorder with these principles is probably not going to work for longevity of long-term, robust, unconditional self-life, other acceptance for OCD sufferers. That's why the first book, which is buried under here underneath a couple other books I'm reading, it's How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable About Anything, Yes Anything by Dr. Albert Ellis, the creator of RBT in the 50s. That book is, in my opinion, if you want to use the term, the gold standard, not exposures, unconditional self-life, other acceptance. Exposures are extremely important. Some fears more than others. But if people don't really understand OCD, and many people tell me this if I'm working with someone, it just feels like they're reading off a textbook. There's no nuances. They're not connecting at the level you guys are. It's very obvious they've never lived it. Again, This is not to put anyone down. It's very hard to understand OCD without going through it. The personal experience with OCD is so critical for understanding these little nuanced perspectives. I mean, I have people that come in who have done 100 sessions of ERP. And I've asked 10 questions, pretty obvious ones, compulsions, avoidance behaviors, and they're doing all 10 of them. Sometimes I'm met with animosity and anger, upset that the person they're working with didn't understand that. Don't blame anyone. It's not a good place to be. It's just very hard to understand these things. Like I'll ask a question such as, did anyone ever tell you that exposures can become compulsive? No. Well, they absolutely can. You're chasing relief over and over and over again. They have to be balanced to some degree. Sometimes you have to actually take your foot completely off the gas and do no exposures and no reading and no disputing work at all. But Nick, what the heck are you talking about? I'm paying you. I'm coming in. I want help. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, I'm telling you, there's different areas of this journey where people really can get upset and frustrated because they think they always have to be working on something at all times. But that's not the case. So leaving symptoms there, the meat and potatoes, what you do throughout your day is critical. I have referred so many people to one of my favorite videos on the channel called My Unsuccessful Attempt to Work Things Out by Sam Williams, who had terrible real event false memory, POSD, moral related fears, and many other things. But that video, again, My Unsuccessful Attempt to Work Things Out, you could search it in the playlist. If you just type in working it out, a bunch comes up. Another one's called like Stop Working It Out, One by Me, Stop Working Things Out and Analyzing. Those videos are critical to pair with this. Because if you're just leaving things there, you don't understand the nuanced perspective of not engaging in automatic rumination. A lot of your rumination is automatic. There's a lot of articles, one specifically, that is the most famous in the OCD community by someone that has a lot of great intentions, has done great things for OCD, but calling rumination a compulsion is simply incorrect. Some of your rumination is compulsive, but a lot of it is not. You're engaging and adding. So think about your automatic rumination as a grill fire that's turned on. So just like that, the propane sparks it. It's a 1 out of 2. And then what you do is you throw extra gasoline on that fire. That's you engaging and speaking back to it. For an example, I haven't spoke a word back to my OCD in years. No belief work, no anything. Nick, if you have a relapse, well, then that was what happens. I mean, I have no control over that, but I have no fears of relapses. I have no fears of going backwards. Why would I have to remind myself of a belief I already believe in? I use different crude examples. Do you wake up every day with existential OCD? But, do you wake up every day and say, am I on Pluto or am I on Mars or am I on Earth? Right? Do you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, am I a white person or am I Puerto Rican? I mean, like these are stupid, crude examples. And of course, your fears can latch on to anything, but in the simplicity of the example, no, because you believe your belief. So there's no need to remind yourself of it. I mean, that's a critical thing. If you are someone that was born in Rome, in Catholicism, do you wake up on a Tuesday and say, am I actually a member of a rare tribal, multiple God religion in Africa? No. If you have a fear of that, then yes. But in the standard sense, I don't need to remind myself of my belief systems because I believe them. Okay? I'm not afraid of forgetting them. I'm not afraid of my beliefs not being instilled enough. So this is a critical piece of the recovery process, but certainly not enough. It takes time to break down your fears. It takes time to realize what unconditional self-life other acceptance is. It takes time to understand acceptance doesn't mean agreement. It takes time to realize that most people on this earth are not going to see things the way you see them once you change your belief systems. It takes a while to see that most people are highly addicted to strong emotions, and understandably so, like I was. It's going to take time, a lot longer than you think. Moment said in the webinar a couple months ago, he's like, a good way to look at it is when you first come in, you check 2 years off your calendar. You don't have to be in every week for 2 years. Obviously, you're backing off frequency and coming in when you want in that sense. Upfront consistency does work better for most people, but it's not going to take 3 months. And everyone usually has to go through this. Like, let's say you get some good progress in 3 to 6 months. See it all the time. We all did it. I'm good. It's behind me. Gemma and Elliot, who I both coached in different areas of their journey, both had some of their worst and strongest relapses 2 years in, and they put the work in. They put the work in, and some of their worst relapses were 2 years in. Gemma's relapse in January 2023 lasted 8 out of 10 anxiety with panic attacks for 4 months. 4 months. Not 4 weeks, 4 months. That was fun. That was a lot of tough coaching that me and her had to go through. That's the way it is. You're not bulletproof. Even when you're 15 years in and you're the next Albert Ellis, something can happen. You don't know what's going to happen. What if I come home and Erica had a heart attack and I find her dead? I mean, you're not, well, I have really good acceptance of life. No, you have no idea how that's going to spark your OCD, but I don't have any fear of that because I don't have any fear of suffering. You're not going to learn that from this book. But you're going to learn so many good principles of this book. This is nothing. Without Paul David, I would have had no idea how to leave things there because Ellis doesn't really talk about that component in his books. Peanut butter and jelly, they go together. They're both needed for different things. That is why it's critical to understand what tools for what times. Phil@OCDrecovery.com. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. Please reach out and comment down below. Hope to hear from you soon. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.